Hi, I'm Catherine from Collier County Public Library. It's starting to be fall in Florida. I've got my pumpkins and a few plants and thinking about fall cooking. So I'd like to share with you Purely Pumpkin by Allison Day. She wants you to enjoy her pumpkin pack pages. The book starts off with an heirloom pumpkin guide. You can read about heirloom pumpkins like Cinderella, Hooligan, Blue Doll, and of course our sugar pie pumpkins, which is a classic pumpkin, about 2 to 3 pounds, and used in a lot of soups and purees. For those of you who create lattes at home, I'm going to make Allison's pumpkin spice latte base. And the base is a key to a spicy homemade pumpkin spice latte, just like the shop makes. And you can use it in coffee or tea. Then I'm going to try a more challenging recipe, which is a cornucopia stuffed pumpkin. And I bought a pumpkin just for this recipe. Allison says it's the ultimate holiday centerpiece, and it's bursting with flavors like quinoa, wild mushrooms, and cranberries. So join me as I cook for the fall with Purely Pumpkin. I'm going to start the recipe by preparing quinoa. So I'm going to cook 1 cup of quinoa, and it makes about 3 cups after you cook it. So I'm going to start with 1 cup of quinoa, cook that for 15 minutes, and let that cool. While my quinoa continues to steam and then cool, I've gotten the rest of the ingredients together. So I'm going to use onion, garlic, cranberries, parsley, eggs, sage, thyme, and mushrooms, and white wine vinegar. And first I'll be adding the eggs, the parsley, and the cranberries and the vinegar to the quinoa. And then in a large skillet, I'll melt butter over medium heat. I'll add the onion, garlic, sage, and thyme, salt and pepper, and I'll saute that for 8 to 10 minutes until the vegetables are soft. And then I'll set that aside to cool slightly before I add it to the quinoa mixture. I've got my 1/4 cup butter melting, unsalted butter. Then I'm going to add my onion, my garlic, my sage and thyme, and then let those cook until they're translucent. I'm going to cook my onion, my garlic, my sage, and thyme. Smelling like fall already. So I've cut the top in my pumpkin, and now I'm going to clean it out and scoop so that I can fill it with the quinoa mixture. Okay, I'm going to admit, I don't think I've scooped out a pumpkin in over 10 years since I've been down here in Florida. But it makes it feel like fall. And it smells wonderful. So I've removed all the seeds and I've pretty much scraped out the pumpkin. It's ready to stuff with the quinoa as soon as the quinoa is cool enough. I'm going to add the 2 eggs, the parsley, cranberries, and white wine vinegar into the quinoa mix and stir thoroughly. Now I'm going to stir in my onion, sage, garlic, and thyme mixture, and a little bit of salt and pepper. I waited for the garlic and onion to cool a bit, so I'll mix that in with my quinoa next. Last, I'm going to add between 2 and 3 ounces of mushrooms. They can either be dried. The cookbooks includes a process for hydrating dried mushrooms. I use some fresh mushrooms, 2 to 3 ounces. Stuff my pumpkin with the quinoa. Smells wonderful. And it looks like it's just going to take about everything I have, which is great. pumpkin is just about filled. I'm going to put the lid back on, the pumpkin top. Oh, I've got one more mushroom I can add. The recipe wants me to encase the pumpkin entirely in foil before I put it into bake or roast. Great time to make the pumpkin spice latte base. Allison's recipe is a half a cup of tightly packed brown sugar, a half a cup water, a half a cup pumpkin puree, 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of pumpkin spice, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. In a medium saucepan, I'm going to warm the water and the sugar over medium heat until the sugar is dissolved. I'll remove that from the heat and then whisk in the remaining ingredients. I'll strain through a mesh strainer, a fine mesh strainer. I have a small one, and I'll put it into a glass jar. The recipe calls for 1/2 cup pumpkin puree, 2 tablespoons vanilla extract, 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of pumpkin spice. And then once the sugar is removed from the heat, I'll whisk in all the remaining ingredients. You can store the pumpkin spice latte base for up to 1 month in the refrigerator.